Listen carefully. You don't lack motivation. You lack understanding. Because if motivation was the problem, you wouldn't keep starting. You start, you stop, you restart, and then you call it inconsistency. But your brain doesn't call it that. Your brain calls it survival. Because your brain was not designed to help you succeed. It was designed to help you stay safe. And success is not safe. Success is uncertain. Success is uncomfortable. Success requires you to become someone your brain does not recognize. So every time you try to grow, your mind pulls you back. Not because you're weak, but because your brain thinks you're in danger. You wake up with energy. You say, today is the day. You plan. You visualize. You feel ready. And for a moment, it feels real. Then, slowly, resistance. You check your phone. You delay a little. You tell yourself you'll start in 5 minutes. 5 minutes becomes an hour. An hour becomes a day. And by night, you feel guilty. Now listen. That is not laziness. That is psychology. Your brain is constantly asking one question. Is this safe? Not, is this important? Not, will this change your life? Just, is this safe? And anything unfamiliar, anything challenging, anything that forces growth, your brain flags it as a threat. So it creates resistance. Not loud, not obvious, subtle. It feels like distraction. It feels like tiredness. It feels like you'll do it later. But it's not random. It's protection. You think you need more motivation. No, you need to understand the loop you're trapped in. You get inspired. You act. You face resistance. You slow down. You stop. Then you blame yourself. And that blame becomes your identity. I'm inconsistent. I lack discipline. I always fall off. And no, your brain has something powerful. A pattern. Because once you believe that about yourself, you start acting like it. You hesitate more. You doubt more. You quit faster. And every time you quit, you confirm the identity. This is not a motivation problem. This is an identity loop. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your self-image. If deep down you see yourself as someone who struggles, you will struggle. If deep down you see yourself as someone who quits, you will quit. Not because you want it, but because your brain wants consistency. Even if that consistency is failure. Because predictable pain feels safer than unfamiliar success. Now let's talk about discipline. You've been told discipline is about forcing yourself, pushing harder, trying more. No, that's why you burn out. Real discipline is not force. It's alignment. It's when your actions match your identity. When what you do feels like who you are. Right now, you're trying to act like someone you haven't become yet. So every action feels like a fight. Every step feels heavy. Every decision feels like effort. That's why you keep stopping. Because you're relying on motivation to carry an identity you haven't built. Motivation is emotional. It rises. It falls. You cannot build a life on something that unstable. Psychology tells us something simple. The brain repeats what is familiar, not what is best. So if struggle is familiar, you will return to it. If delay is familiar, you will return to it. If quitting is familiar, you will return to it. Not because you're broken, because you're conditioned. Now, erase the shift. And this is where most people get uncomfortable. You don't need to try harder. You need to become someone different. Not externally, internally. You need to change the way you see yourself. Because once identity shifts, behavior follows. Not forced, not dramatic, natural. Instead of saying, I need to be disciplined, you start saying, I am someone who finishes. And then you prove it. Small, not big, not overwhelming. You finish one task, then another, then another. And slowly, your brain updates the identity. This is who we are now. And once your brain accepts that, resistance drops. Not completely, but noticeably. You've been trying to fight your mind. That's the mistake. You don't fight your psychology. You work with it. You understand it. You redirect it. Because your brain is not your enemy. It's just doing its job, protecting you, keeping you in the known. But if you keep listening to it blindly, you will stay where you are. Comfortable, predictable, stuck. Growth is not about motivation. It's about awareness, seeing the patterns, interrupting them, replacing them, again and again and again, until the new pattern becomes automatic. You don't need another burst of inspiration. You've had enough of that. You need clarity. You need honesty. You need to accept one thing. Your current habits are perfectly designed to keep you exactly where you are, not forward, not backward, exactly where you are. So if you want change, real change, you don't wait to feel ready. You act in a way that creates a new version of you. before your brain agrees, before it feels comfortable, before it feels easy, because it won't feel easy. Not at first, but every time you act differently, you send a signal. Every time you follow through, you rewrite something. Every time you resist the urge to quit, you build evidence, and your brain collects evidence. That's how identity changes. Not by thinking, by doing, repeatedly. You are not stuck. You are patterned. And patterns can be broken. But only if you stop treating motivation like the solution and start treating psychology like the foundation. So the next time you feel resistance, don't panic. Don't overthink it. Recognize it. This is my brain trying to protect me. And then move anyway. Not aggressively. Not emotionally. Just deliberately. Because the truth is simple. You don't need more motivation. You need to stop negotiating with the version of you that wants to stay the same. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. And once everything changes, you start noticing something strange. The things that used to feel hard start feeling normal. Not easy, but normal. And that's the shift nobody talks about. Because people are waiting for things to feel easy, when in reality, they just need things to feel familiar. You don't wake up one day, suddenly disciplined. You wake up one day and realize you no longer argue with yourself as much. You don't debate whether to start. You just start. You don't sit there negotiating. You don't wait for the right mood. Because the version of you that needed that is slowly disappearing. And this is where most people sabotage themselves again. Because right when things start becoming stable, they get comfortable. And comfort is where the cycle restarts. Let me explain something clearly. Your brain adapts to everything. Pain, progress, even discipline. So the moment something becomes routine, your brain stops seeing it as growth. It becomes your new normal. And what do most people do? They stop pushing. They relax. They assume they've made it. And slowly, they drift back. Not all at once. Little by little. Miss one day. Then another. Then a week. And before they realize it, they're back at the beginning. This is why consistency is not about intensity. It's about awareness. You have to stay conscious of your patterns. Because the same mind that helped you build progress can also quietly destroy it. You don't fall back because you're incapable. You fall back because you stop paying attention. Now let's talk about something deeper. Something most people avoid. Your comfort zone is not just about ease. It's about identity protection. If you've spent years being a certain version of yourself, your brain will fight to preserve it. Even if that version is limiting. Even if that version is struggling. Because it's known, and the unknown feels like a risk. So when you start improving, you're not just changing habits. You're threatening your own identity. And your brain responds with resistance. Not because it's trying to stop you, but because it's trying to keep things consistent. That's why you feel uncomfortable when you're doing the right things. That discomfort, that tension, that internal resistance, that's not a sign to stop. That's a sign that something is changing. And most people misinterpret that signal. They feel discomfort and assume something is wrong. So they go back to what feels familiar. And in doing that, they train their brain to avoid growth. But you need to learn how to sit in that discomfort. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just calmly. Because growth is not loud. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's often boring. And that's why most people don't last. They're chasing excitement. When what they actually need is stability. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You need to be consistent on the days you're not. That's where the real change happens. Now here is another truth. And it might be uncomfortable. You are not as in control as you think. Most of your actions are automatic, driven by patterns, triggered by cues, repeated without awareness. You wake up. You check your phone. Not because you decided to, because it's programmed. You delay work. Not because you're lazy, because your brain associates effort with discomfort. So if you want to change your life, you don't just change what you do. You change what triggers you. You remove friction from good habits. You add friction to bad ones. You make progress easier and regression harder. That's how you work with your psychology, not against it. Because willpower is unreliable. But systems are predictable. And once your environment supports your behavior, you don't have to fight yourself as much. This is where everything starts to align. Your identity, your habits, your environment. Now you're no longer forcing change. You're reinforcing it. And over time, that reinforcement becomes automatic. You stop thinking about discipline. You start living it. Now listen carefully, because this is where everything comes together. You've been waiting to become someone different before you act differently. But it doesn't work like that. You act differently until you become someone different. That's the order, not the other way around.
So if you're waiting to feel ready, you'll wait forever. If you're waiting for motivation, you'll stay stuck.